Yeah. Thank you for the invitation and for your kind introduction. I would like to start this talk with a quick survey. How many of you have ever traveled with a traditional pocket map? Please raise your hands. Okay. And how many of you know the connection between these two objects? Okay. I'm glad that very few people, only few people have insulted us with their youth. And how many of you have ever made use of a typewriter? Okay. So we can say here, all of us belong to the same generation. In a generous approach, I would say. And I think we are very challenging, we've been challenged as a generation very highly. Between a typewriter and a smartphone that you have in your pocket, there is a whole collection of technological changes. There are two different civilizations. And I think it is not too daring to say that we are the generation that has been exposed to the highest level of change in history. No generation has ever been asked to learn so many things in so little time. That's why I think all of us here today belong to the bridge generation, the generation that crossed from the analog world to the digital one. And in crossing this bridge, we need to face many different types of challenges. But one of them, business-wise, is identifying the right strategy for our industries. You know, in business schools, we love to use these matrices, and I'm going to use a couple of them today. This one is to identify the right strategy, and there are two variables, high competition and low competition, that one is easy, and then stable market or unstable market. There are three factors that traditionally change the stability of a market. The first one is changes in regulation. The second factor is changes in technology. Technology applied to any dimension of our business model. And the third dimension that changes the stability of a market is the behavior of the demand. So if you foresee in your particular industry changes coming ahead because of changes in regulation and technology or changes in the behavior of the demand, then you're probably on the unstable side. Now, I would like to ask you, what is the position of your industry in this particular matrix? So how many of you would say that you are in a high competition but a stable market? That means that the rules of the game aren't changing. The way of competing today is as it was in 10 years, and in 5-year time it's going to be pretty much the same. How many of you would say, I am in a high competition but stable market? Please raise your hands. Okay. Low competition and a stable market. Okay? Then on the unstable side, low competition and unstable. No one? And then one, all right. And then finally, high competition and unstable. Please raise your hands. Okay. That wasn't any trick. I haven't changed this slide in 10 years. No matter the country, believe me, it's not out of laziness, it's out of coping with the times we are going through. So the right strategy could be in high competitions but stable, is focusing in results. The business isn't changing, so the way of competing is the same, just get better results than the competition. Low competition but stable, you don't even have to worry about the competition, so focus internally on getting efficiency. Of course, these strategies are not exclusionary, they are complementary. And on the other side, whenever you foresee changes coming ahead, redesigning processes, the way you do things becomes something important. And finally, what's the right strategy when you're in the middle of this situation, high competition and stable? What do you think? innovation, I would say transformation with this broader umbrella, and I would put innovation within the umbrella of transformation. So basically, we are all of us going through a global storm. I don't know if you've been in a storm in the ocean, but whenever you are out there, you can focus only in a couple of things. And you tend to focus on what's going out there, what's the context, how high are the waves, how strong are the winds, and where do they come from. And that's a strategy. That's understanding what's happening in your industry and some other industries. And then you need to have the right leadership to lead your ship in the middle of a global storm. And here is a question for all of us. Do I have the skill set required to lead a transformation? Do I have the skill set to lead in turbulent times? Or my skill set, or our skill set as a company is an old one for this situation? So, if I only had 3 minutes to give this talk, this would be the message. Nowadays, there is no lack of managers. Nowadays, there is a lack of leaders with the capacity to transform. Let me explain with 4 characteristics what is being able to transform. To be able to transform is to be able to redesign a business model that is declining. I'm not talking about knowing the latest trends in your industry. I'm talking about being able to disrupt your own business model. Second, being able to transform means being able to redesign processes that are complex, that involve many people, but not only on a piece of paper. Here is the third. Being able to re-engage people to embrace a new process, a new way of doing things. Because at the beginning of a new job or a new task, everybody's enthused. But after a while, people get upset, or maybe they get bored. And you and I, as leaders, as managers, we need to re-engage, re-enthuse people to embrace new ways of doing things. And the fourth one is probably the most critical. It's the most critical because it is restoring damaged relationships. Restoring damaged or even broken relationships among the people we need to work with. Look at your context, your family, your social context, your team, your company, your country, our world. There are conflicts everywhere. And we need a wave of people, of leaders, that are able to restore damaged relationships. And that is critical, and that is important, because the challenge that we have is not achievable only by individuals. We need to work collaboratively, and that's why I think we need to develop a culture of real high standard collaboration within our companies. Again, here is another model to think about what's the quality of the collaboration in our teams. And I think there are 2 variables at stake on collaboration. One is trust among the members of a particular team. And then it's discipline. Let me say that high trust means that type of relationship that is developed between people that have been working together for many years, and they end up developing a sort of a friendship, or maybe a strong friendship. They really trust each other. Of course, I'm not meaning that all of us need to develop this level of relationship with everyone in the company. What I'm saying is it would be weird if we never develop this type of relationship with anybody. Then we need to get that thing by a doctor, maybe. And then the low part of trust would be, we're here just for business. Don't tell me your personal stuff. Just do your job and go home. And that only works in a very particular context we will see in a while. And then we have discipline, and I would say discipline is basically keeping 4 things in order. Things, time, information, and ideas. That's all. So you can review how disciplined you are if you keep things, time, information, and ideas in order. So whenever you have low trust and low discipline in a particular team, this is a type of collaboration that you get. It's defensive. I did my job, but you didn't, so if we don't get this project on time, it will be your fault. So we are accusing people. There's another type, which is very typical in the Anglo-Saxon world, which is a sort of a follow-the-rules type of collaboration. We love to set up many rules, and we tend to follow those rules. And that's fine if the market is stable. But what if we need to change something? What if we need to innovate? What if we need to arouse the enthusiasm of our team to even redesign the rules that actually are ruling us today? What if I need to do all those things? This type of collaboration doesn't reach to that level. On the other corner, we have the Latin world, in which people tend to be warmer. They embrace you, they give you hugs, they kiss you and everything. You know, that's fine. But they end up falling into artificial harmony. Everything looks fine, but there are a lot of dead fish under the table. And we don't talk about those things until they become so smelly that you need to take action. So that doesn't work as well. And it doesn't work because of the lack of discipline that is involved in that type of teams or cultures. So we need to reach a different level of collaboration that I would call flow. When you see people rowing together on a river, and you see that level of flow, everybody rowing at the same pace, that is unbelievable. It's so powerful. It looks so simple. It's just outstanding. But that's unusual. And that flow is reached through synergy. And let me explain the concept of synergy by telling you a story that happened to me when I was a kid. I was with some friends on a beach in the south of Spain. That is an old Land Rover. That is the ocean. And the other part is the beach, in case somebody gets lost. So we were there, and we were driving so close to the shore that the Land Rover got stuck in the sand. Somebody told us, if the salt water enters in the engine, it's the end of the Land Rover. So we need to take action immediately. And then we go out, and then we found a car. We set up a tow, and at the count of 3, we both accelerated. 1, 2, 3. It didn't work. The tide was coming up. It was dangerous, but luckily we found another car. We set up another tow, and at the count of 3, we accelerated. It didn't work either. So the second driver came up and said, listen, we got a problem here. Oh, thank you, we know that. Do you have any solution? And he said, it looks like we are pulling in the same direction, but we are not. And we told him, listen, don't lecture us on physics. Tell us what the heck we can do now. And he said, put the cars in line. It was a matter of seconds. The ocean was touching the Land Rover already. We put the cars in line. And at the count of 3, we accelerated. 1, 2, 3. Instantly, the 3 cars came out. At that point, I have to admit, I didn't elaborate any thought or leadership. I just was happy of not having to pay a car to a friend. But thinking about the importance of unity and alignment in teams, and especially in top management teams, this story came to my mind. Because many times we all of us say, we are just working so hard for this company. I'm doing such a great effort. I feel this company as if it was mine. And the other person is saying the same, I'm working so hard, and the next. But the reality is that we are disaligned. And this lack of alignment, due to lack of trust or to lack of discipline, is not only preventing us from moving ahead. Many times, it's preventing us from moving at all. And there is nothing more frustrating than making an extraordinary effort and not moving anywhere. And this is a reality in so many management teams. So thinking about, again, transformation, we need to develop a culture of collaboration, and trust and discipline are involved in this collaboration. I think we can manage discipline well. But what about trust? How do you manage trust? How you reconquer the enthusiasm? How you restore damaged relationships? I found this quote interesting from Jim Burke, former CEO of Johnson & Johnson. There is no human relationship that works without trust, whether it is a marriage, a friendship, or a company. Think about trust. We are probably, all of us, trying to develop this kind of trust in our context. And we all know that it's not easy, especially in this fast evolving world we live in. I found this chart the other day, and it's so overwhelming how many things are happening in just 60 seconds. Look at this, only through email and WhatsApp, 170 million messages are sent every 60 seconds. And here is my intuition. My intuition is that many of us, probably at some point in our lives, instead of facing a face-to-face conversation, we hide behind a keyboard and a screen, shooting messages from the distance, like snipers, when we really need a face-to-face conversation. And this tendency to replace face-to-face conversations with messages in all sorts of platforms is creating a huge inefficiency in organizations. And it's also creating conflict. You are probably familiar with this concept, stabbing 2.0, which is the blind copy as a digital way of stabbing someone in the back, right? So it's creating conflict, it's creating inefficiency, because what do? You just get to the office and answer back emails. That's what you do. Because so many people sending you so many emails, because that culture is based in lack of trust. That's why we need to write down everything. So here is my proposal for these times we're living through. Less email, less WhatsApp, and more conversations. Real conversations, face-to-face conversations. And I think there is much at stake on this shift, since the quality of your leadership depends on the quality of your conversations. Think about your conversations. What other people think about the way you converse. Your colleagues, your friends, your family members, the people in your team, what do they think? What happens after your conversations? Are they inspiring? That's a good question. You probably remember this story that happened in January 2009. A plane took off from LaGuardia Airport in New York. After a few seconds, a flock of migratory birds entered in both engines, and they got stuck, resulting in a rapid loss of power. The pilot called the base and said, "I need to land instantly." And the base told him, "You know, the closest place where you can land is 6 minutes from your position." This pilot realizes that he can't make it. So he takes a very strong decision from the leadership standpoint to land in the Hudson River. And here is a story told by one of the passengers. He was sitting in the first row. And 2 years later, he told in a video what happened to him in those 2 minutes he thought were the last 2 minutes of his life. So he felt the birds, he felt that something was really wrong, and all of a sudden the captain says, "We are heading to the Hudson, fasten your seatbelts, and prepare for impact." So he got the conclusion, we are all going to die, because it doesn't sound familiar to me landing in the Hudson River. They usually land in the airports. This guy was thinking about this, and he couldn't articulate many thoughts at that moment. But he told in this video that he felt he wasn't ready to die, if one can ever be ready to die. He wasn't ready to die because there were 3 dimensions in his life that didn't work. The first one was constant discussions with his wife. The second was spending in the office much more time than needed, not because I have so much work to do, because the reason why I'm spending so much time is because my family life is frustrating. And the third dimension that didn't work is I'm seeing my children more times with their eyes closed than with their eyes open. This is just ridiculous. My life is a mess. I need to fix my life. I can't die now. I have a lot of things to do. And thank God, nobody died. They landed in the Hudson River. But when this person got home that very night, he broached a pending conversation with his wife. And in that extraordinary conversation, they were able to fix their relationship, they were able to reshape their marriage, and he took very strong decisions on the time he was spending in the office and the quality time he was willing to spend with their children. You might be wondering, why am I telling you this story? I think this person achieved an extraordinary transformation through an extraordinary event, landing in the Hudson River, being about to die. And I don't want to diminish the value of this transformation. But it's way more difficult to achieve an extraordinary transformation through ordinary events. We all have the experience. So here we are in companies, in teams, in a society that needs a tremendous transformation. And we're trying to send a message through ordinary channels, and it doesn't work. That's why I think we need to master the art of creating extraordinary moments to have extraordinary conversations that inspire people to take action, to change their lives. That is the power of conversation. And again, I think conversation has many angles and many variables, but I think there are two critical on the quality of a conversation. One of them is the line of argument, our capacity to build up a good argument, simple, powerful, backed up with data and facts. And the other dimension is creating empathy. How do we create empathy with someone with which we have had a conflict or confrontation that is challenging, but we need to create that degree of empathy. So again, what happens when your line of argument is not well developed, you're improvising, and you have lack of empathy with the other person, the effect of the conversation is just frustration. And then you tend to think, it would have been better not to have this conversation, because the picture after the conversation is worse than at the beginning. And then we say, stupidly, no, this person is not going to change. You know what? From now on, everything by email. I can talk with this person. And whenever we say so, what we are saying is this person is not going to change. And when I say this person is not going to change, what I'm really saying is I am not going to change. And when I say so, that is critical. Because what I'm saying is that I'm losing faith in the transformation power of any human being. And that's the end of the world. So again, we can have a different type of conversation when we prepare a good line of argument. And this happens very many times in business. Very articulated people, many smart people are good at this. They create a great line of argument. But there is such a lack of empathy that the effect is rejection. Because these super smart people, but sometimes they are emotionally illiterate. They don't have the capacity to give room to the other person to participate in that conversation. They only expect a yes, sir. So that is not a conversation at all. We move now down to the other corner, and we have those explosive conversations that are filled with emotions and feelings. Sometimes the effect is good. Sometimes the effect is bad. But in any case, they run the risk of having a transient effect, like a summer storm. Many emotions, but very few key concepts and ideas I can handle too in the future. So that's why I'm proposing that all of us master the art of creating extraordinary conversations, inspiring conversations. Because when you get to inspire somebody, you open up the possibility of real transformation. I think there is nothing more powerful as a tool to change or to transform the reality as a face-to-face conversation. But we are so busy. We're spending so much time with our devices, and we spend so little time broaching critical and pending conversations. So what is to be inspiring? Because we need to be inspiring in those conversations. Let me define what is not to be inspiring. To be inspiring is not to occasionally dazzle someone like a deer caught in the headlights. Because you can't dazzle people because you are smart, because you are so articulated, because you have certain qualities and people can get dazzled by you. But that is not to be inspiring. I think to be inspiring is a different level. To be inspiring is we achieve that level of spirit when someone inspires you, when she or he gets or moves you to change your habits, transforming your life. So again, think about, do I have the capacity to transform people's lives? Do I have the capacity to change the habits of the people that are around me? Do I have that level of inspiration? Am I a leader? Or maybe I'm just a manager who went through the ranks and then happens to be director, but doesn't have the qualities or the capacity to lead people or to transform people's lives. To me, to be inspiring, we need two qualities or two dimensions. First of all, professional competencies or skills that are remarkable. We need to be good at what we do. But if you don't have the other side of it, it doesn't work. You need to be, as a person, inspiring as well. That means that your values, your competencies, the way you are, needs to be worth imitating for other people. They need to find you as a leader, as a whole, not just the professional side. Because in a transformation, you spend your time looking at the people in the eye and telling them to make an extraordinary effort that was leader to. But people don't follow you if you are not inspiring. So, inspiring leaders through inspiring conversations. I know conversations is a very broad topic, and I don't want to just to limit this idea of having impact conversation to a few tips. But let me present just in this session, short session, 3 tips to improve the line of argument, and then 3 tips to improve the level of empathy between two people. First one, identify the real purpose of the conversation. Many times we approach conversations with a mistaken purpose. It's because we have a fight and now I want to fight back. That doesn't work. It has to be different. You need to reach or to find another angle to broach this conversation. Second is designing the key messages, just a few of them. And they need to be convincing. Many times we get to a conversation and we want to tell so many things. Here is my suggestion. Think about a 2-minute conversation. What would you say? And then try to summarize those key messages and find the right words to define those key messages, because they will stick in the mind of the other person. And finally, back them up with facts and data. Not too many facts and data, just a few, but they need to be powerful. And some tips to develop empathy. Here is the first one. Change your inner conversation. What if you've had conflict with that person in the past? What if whenever you start thinking about that person, you feel like, fire inside you? So we need to call like a snowstorm that washes away those feelings. And we call that a snowstorm when we think and when we believe that there is a chance that the other person can be right, there is a chance that the other person has good intention, and there is a chance that the other person may change. That's calling the snowstorm that washes away and cools down those feelings. The second tip would be avoid interruptions. It's a very silly way to say someone, I'm not interested in your point of view. When we interrupt, we are saying so. So we need to listen, and to listen with our eyes, which is a different kind of listening. Making the other person feeling that we are there listening to that person. And finally, advance for as long as possible on common ground. Sometimes common ground is just so tiny, but stick to that common ground, and then you can make excursions every now and then to negotiate something, but then go back to common ground. It's a matter of building bridges instead of building walls. And some people are very good at that, right? So let me finish with a story that happened to my father in 1954. He told me recently. He landed in the middle of the main street in Seville, a city in the south of Spain, and he landed there with a German plane. He was a pilot in a base near Seville. And someday, a mechanic arrived saying, "We got a new plane from Germany. Who wants to try it?" And my father said, "I will." And the mechanic said, "Well, this plane is great, but it has a little problem. Sometimes, in the middle of the flight, the engine stops." Okay, but don't worry, because you have a lever here, you push it back and forth, and in a few seconds, the engine restarts. Okay, can do that. So that was a mechanic of the 50s, I think. So my father took that plane. He was flying around Seville. The plane was working well, the engine was fine, but all of a sudden he saw this big avenue empty because it was early in the afternoon. People were sleeping siesta, I assume. So he saw the avenue and said, "This is the greatest opportunity." So he himself stopped the engine and flew against the wind smoothly and landed on the avenue. He called the base and said, "I got an emergency landing." And they said, "Don't worry, we'll send a truck." They sent a truck. And they were disassembling, when the truck arrived, disassembling the wings to put the plane on the truck. And then my father asked the mechanic, "What is this lever for?" The mechanic said, "Don't worry about it." Then my father said, "I really want to know. What is this lever for?" And the mechanic said, "Don't tell anybody, right? Okay. You see the lever? There is a cable. Follow the cable." And my father followed the cable. And the cable wasn't connected at all to the engine. It was connected to a little spring attached to the fuselage. It was just a spring. And my father said, "What is this?" And the mechanic said, "Let me explain. I told you this plane has this little problem. Sometimes in the middle of the flight, the engine stops." To tell you the truth, we don't know why this happened. All we know is just a few seconds later, you don't have to do anything. It restarts itself. But to avoid pilots getting afraid, getting scared, jumping on the parachute on the plane crash, we give you this lever to keep you entertained, When my father told me the story, I got two conclusions. The first one, now I know why he's always so understanding with the mistakes of his children. Because when you have such a past, you tend to be more understanding. And second, life is way more interesting when we are daring and we take risks. Because when we take risks, we get to learn more and we get to learn faster. My father got to learn something very valuable at that moment in that base. It was life or death, that lever. So I would like to finish this talk with a daring proposal to all of us. The proposal is choose a pending conversation that you may have. Maybe with a boss whom you secretly despise. Maybe with a colleague that is demotivated. Maybe with a brother of yours whom you lost contact with a long time ago. Or maybe with a person whom you used to love and from whom now you only expect just a bearable relationship. Here is my proposal. Choose a pending conversation and transform it into an inspiring one. Thank you very much.